According to the City of Toronto, there are 17,100 people living in the St. Jamestown area. However, residents believe there are as many as 25,000 people. My name is Dmitry Martinovich and you're watching St. Jamestown TV. The area known as St. Jamestown North is bounded by Bloor Street on the north, Wellesley Street on the south, Jarvis Street to the west, and Parliament Street on the east. The area is considered to be one of North America's most densely populated neighborhoods. Research from the Wellesley Institute has identified that St. Jamestown suffers from overcrowding, a lack of green and public spaces, poor building and neighborhood maintenance. Concern for the area has been ongoing. However, it is not until 2000 that the City of Toronto approved a community action plan, the aim of which was to revitalize St. Jamestown through initiatives such as the building of a multi-service community center, improvements to parks, improvements and maintenance to the St. Jamestown building. Today we will be joined by Laurel Christie, Landscape Project Coordinator and Landscape Architect, and Corinne Fox, Planner Parks Development and Planning. Laurel and Corinne will walk us through what the city has planned in terms of creating a safer, greener, and more accessible space for residents. Welcome, Laurel and Corinne, to St. Jamestown TV News. You both work for the City of Toronto as project coordinators and planners. Can you tell us in detail what areas of specialty are involved in your work?
Sure, I can go first. So I'm Laurel Christie. I'm a senior project coordinator, landscape architect with the city in parks, forestry, and recreation. So essentially, as a landscape architect, I work on coordinating the design of new and existing parks in mostly the downtown area of the city.
Good morning. My name is Corinne Fox. I'm a parks planner with the City of Toronto, and basically, my role involves kind of working in the background to help improve existing parks or to acquire new parks. And I work all the way from kind of hyper-local, very neighborhood level, like this project here we're going to be talking about, all the way to much larger scale types of studies, and very much work with residents, landowners, counselors, and anybody else who needs to be involved in parks projects.
Right, thank you very much. Now, what is behind the revitalization? Why now? And what is the development meant to solve?
There's been many studies over the years that have happened since beginning, I think since the 80s even, to try to improve the area. But what has made it complicated is just the fact that a lot of the land in the area is privately owned, and so the city doesn't have jurisdiction over many of the roads and the public spaces in the area. In any case, this new framework, the St. Jamestown Connects Parks and Public Realm Plan, really is an implementation strategy to try to create safer, more accessible, and more green and connected parks and open spaces and streets.
Laurel, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I don't think at this point, no, that's more of a planning question.
Okay,
Yeah.
So can you briefly go over what are the key project goals and what are the highest priorities and why at this point?
Okay, so today, Laurel and myself are going to provide a brief overview and talk about the parks projects in St. Jamestown that are currently underway. Next, please. So starting with a brief overview, the St. Jamestown neighborhood was originally planned in the 1950s as a high-rise neighborhood aimed at young professionals. The neighborhood has since evolved into an area lacking in usable safe and accessible parks, open spaces, and pedestrian connections. A lot of the public realm, including some of the major streets, are not publicly owned and are therefore not designed or maintained to city standards. Next, please. So in 2018, City Council approved the St. Jamestown Connects Public Realm and Open Space Plan to begin to address the issues in the existing conditions. The purpose of the St. Jamestown Connects framework is to create safer, greener, accessible, and animated open spaces and improved pedestrian connections. So as you can see on this map, the St. Jamestown Connects framework outlines 10 key projects to achieve the goal of creating safer and greener open spaces and connections. These 10 key projects include, for example, creating wider sidewalks, creating connected and safe pedestrian walkways, improving open spaces to better meet the needs of the community, enhancing the pedestrian experience through the addition of lighting, tree planting, and seating, and reorganizing solid waste and surface parking infrastructure to achieve mid-block connections. So my colleague Laurel will now describe in more detail the projects underway at numbers 2 and 3, the revitalization of the TCHC open space and the market area.
Okay, so this is just a zoom in of the proposed plan for the open space and market area. So this is the area bordered by Wellesley Street to the south, Bleecker Street to the west, St. James Avenue to the north, and then Ontario Street and kind of the food basics area to the east. So I'll take you through what's proposed. This was a plan that was consulted with the community between 2017 and 2018. And we're just in the process of hiring a landscape architect to do the detailed design and also lead the construction of this work. So the design work is planned to start in the next month or two and run into fall of 2022. And then construction will happen in phases from 2023 to 2026. And the challenge here is because a lot of this area is over TCHC owned parking garages. The work will be phased based on the work on the garage and then the restoration of this new proposed plan on top of that. So the first area I'll start with is number 1. That's right at the southern portion of the property at Wellesley and Ontario Street. So you may recognize the area next to Food Basics is a proposed market area. So these are some ideas and concepts of what that area could look like. We're still assessing, what kind of model, who would manage the space, what form that would take, what it would look like, what would happen there. But some ideas are some initiatives related to food security, bicycle repair, possible vendors. That's still to be determined, but these are some images of what that area could look like, shipping containers and things like that, some tree planting and seating as well. So the next area I wanted to talk about, if you follow north along the pathway there, number 2, and then further north, number 3, bordering St. James Avenue. These are the promenades, the Ontario Street Promenade, and then the St. James Plaza. So these are some Preston images of what those areas could look like. So on the left is an idea of what Ontario Street could look like. So very wide areas for lots of people to walk through and walk by, possible cycling infrastructure, as well as lots of seating. And then the image on the right is what it could look like from St. James Avenue looking south into that open space. So very long views, so there's lots of open seating areas, lots of areas to walk. And just for security purposes, being able to see quite far into the space. The next area I wanted to talk about, if you follow that plaza area just to the left or to the west of that, number 6, and just to the south, number 7, those are the water play and natural play areas. So this is a rendering of what that could look like. Again, we're still going to do detailed designs. We don't know exactly, but these are some ideas of the space. So on the left, you can see some water jets for water play, and then on the right, a large play area. And then south of the play area, you'll see number 9 is the brown area, which is a proposed stage, and then 10 is a very large open lawn. And that could possibly look something like this. So this is an image looking west. So on the left is a large open lawn area, and on the right is the stage. So in the day, it could just be informal seating, and then at night, you could have impromptu movie nights, so people could sit on the lawn and watch a movie from the stage. And then finally, closer to the corner of Bleecker Street and Wellesley Street, number 12 and 14, could be community gardens and games tables. So things like ping pong or chess, things like that, and then community organized community gardens to grow their own food. And that's the concept.
In terms of the project this large, can you speak a little bit about how and to what extent residents groups and community organizations have been involved in the planning stages of these developments?
Sure, I can speak to that a little bit. So actually, starting at about page 37 of the St. Jamestown Connects report, there's a whole consultation summary, actually going back to the 80s even, but specifically for the St. Jamestown Connects study, there have been a lot of engagements being done by the city since 2013. There were landowner meetings, various community open houses, planners setting up in the open spaces, like with a little tent so people can just walk up to the city staff and ask questions anytime they want. There was, like, for example, a charrette with children at Wellesley Community Center, meeting with service provider networks. The city set up as part of spring gatherings and summer festivals, meeting with TCHC and agency stakeholders, youth outreach meetings. So it's getting long, but what I'm trying to point out here is that there's definitely been a lot of outreach done by the city for St. Jamestown Connects Parks and Public Realm Plan.
Laurel? No?
Yeah, that covers it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah. So one of the things, excuse me, that you just mentioned, and that's highlighted in the report, is the relationship of the privately owned properties and streets. How has that shaped the discourse and the development of the project?
So basically, as you can, this map shows the ownership in the neighborhood. And basically you can see that the city does not own a lot of the streets, the major streets or the public spaces in the area. The only city-owned major streets are Howard Street and Bleecker Street. Everything else that's in the different colors is privately owned. So for example, you'll see St. James Avenue running through the middle there is owned by 2 different owners, essentially owned by TCHC to the west and Greatwise to the east. And because it's privately owned, they're not necessarily maintaining it up to city standards, nor are they coordinating the design and improvements to St. James Avenue. So those are some of the challenges about implementing improvements to this area. And so through the St. Jamestown Connects framework, the city is trying to play more, I guess, of a coordination role to ensure that these major spines, these major roads and pedestrian connections are better coordinated in terms of its design and construction moving forward. Did you want to add anything, Laurel, or is that?
I think the only other thing I point out is just the only publicly owned open space is St. Jamestown West Park that borders Sherburne Street and Howard Street. The rest is all privately owned open space, or owned by TCHC, I guess, a public entity, but not.
So what do those restrictions, how do those restrictions play into the further development of the area? It seems as though the hands of the city are tied with respect to having the private owners move along with the city plans. Can you comment about that?
Sure, I can start. If that's okay, Laurel. Well, so for example, the open space, the TCHC owned open space that Laurel just described, we're having to enter into a partnership with TCHC to fund and reconstruct that open space. Like the TCHC is bringing some money. TCHC is bringing some money, but the city is bringing kind of the larger chunk of the money to start improving that space. So it just becomes a little bit more complicated because you're having to like enter into partnerships. You're having to like bring two landowners together. It's very much like a coordinating role that the city has to play. Same with Ontario Street, as you can see, running through up and north and south through the middle there. TCHC owns the south side, Great Wise owns the north side, and somehow the city, we haven't figured it out yet, but we'll have to figure out how to make Ontario Street continuous and ensure the design is continuous and that it's well connected.
The only thing I would add is as this area changes and there's new development applications, having this framework in place allows us to demonstrate we've got this vision for the site, so then we can work with the private applications that are coming forward to ensure their applications measure up to what the city is looking to plan and implement here.
Yeah, speaking about further development, so there are new buildings going up, some in that northeastern corner already, and there's some to the southwestern end of things. They're going to be very large buildings with possibly as many as 1,800 new condominium units in the area. And how is that kind of development going to affect the St. Jamestown area?
I can't really speak to the developments themselves. The only thing I can speak to is the fact that those developments are providing new monies towards either new parkland in the neighborhood or improvement of existing parkland.
I see.
Yeah.
So I think you've answered pretty much all of the questions in your presentation. I'm just wondering, is there anything else that you would like to say that we haven't perhaps covered? Or
I think I covered it.
Yeah, I think we covered it. Thank you.
Well, I just have one other question. Actually, a couple of questions. Sure. often in these kinds of revitalization projects where the environment becomes greener and it becomes a much more desirable place to live, often what happens is the rents go up and it becomes a less affordable place for many of the low-income people living there. How do you see this development playing out in terms of that? And what is the thinking about all of that regarding the gentrification of a neighborhood?
That might be a question better answered by city planning. I guess what I could say is that TCHC remains a large landowner in the area. And what the other thing that city planning could also talk about that I don't have the expertise in is probably there is a certain percentage of the new units that come in that have to be affordable. Perhaps, but I'm sorry. It would have that'd be a question better directed at city planning or housing.
Now, my other question goes back to the original question. Why now? What has now led to, I know that the plans have been in the wind for a long time, but I'm wondering what has been the impetus for carrying on for implementing the plan at this moment?
I guess having this concept plan consulted on and ready to go, and then also the combination of that with actual funding that's available to put towards it so we can actually implement it. That would be the biggest move ahead that we've had in quite a while.
And primarily, is the funding from because of the redevelopment in the area?
Yeah, Korean Section 37.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of the funding, all of it actually comes from Section 37, community benefit funding. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Laurel and Corinne. We will perhaps we'll get back to you certainly as the project develops and check in with you again and see how it's going. So for now, thank you very much, and I'll see you at a later date.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Please do not forget to like, comment, and share to our channel. Follow us on all our social media platforms. And for more information, please check out our website.